How's everybody doing today? Welcome to, I guess today is Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday's session, Q&A with Thatcher and Brenton Demko. For those that don't know me, my name is Larry Cahn. I am with the Vacaville Jets and the Golden State Elite. We've got a lot of goaltenders on the call today, so we're excited to hear some good information, and we get to ask some awesome questions. I'd like to first start off by thanking Thatcher and Brenton for coming onto the Q&A, and we really appreciate the time that you dedicate to the youth coming up. And I'm going to first start off with introducing the both. First, we have Brenton Demko, father of Thatcher. Brenton, jump on, say hey. Oh, you're muted right now. Where are you?
Hello.
There you are. There you are. Perfect. Thatcher, well, welcome to the show.
Hey guys.
We're gonna start off. This is a Q&A. A handful of the kids had an opportunity to send in questions. I've of course loaded the questions with the Q&A sheet with questions I feel are important for the families and players to hear. I've had an opportunity to witness some of the development from Thatcher and watch him go up, as well as other goaltenders as well. So there's a lot of key points to the development along the way that I think is important for families to hear. Thatcher, can you go ahead and start off with talking about your path to get to where you're at today? And before you start, I'd like to preface it with there are lots of different paths to make it to the next level. And the one that you're about to hear does not happen very often, meaning it's the fastest route to get there. And it doesn't happen very often. And so it's important that everyone understands that there's different paths to get there. And we're going to ask questions later on to help explain that as well. So Thatcher, thank you for coming on. And if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to talk to some young guys today. Obviously with what's going on right now, it's nice to kind of keep in touch with people. So I'm glad we're doing this. But yeah, my path was, like you said, a little bit unorthodox. It started a little bit slow, I'd say. Growing up in San Diego was a little bit different than a lot of the guys that I've been able to play with over the years. So, it came down to really my dad and I trying to, we had a lot of meetings as a family trying to navigate through what were the best options. We didn't really have access to things like this where we could ask questions, of people that had made it so far, and kind of pick their brain about their knowledge. So it was really up to us to try and figure it out. So I played in San Diego for Larry. When I was, I think my dad can kind of clear up the details, but I think I was around maybe 12 when we first started thinking about moving away, 13, which is obnoxiously young. And I think that was a little bit part of my drive, just kind of wanting to progress as a hockey player. But I ended up moving away when I was 15. I was a sophomore in high school. I talked to prep schools. I talked to other teams around the country, Detroit, Colorado. I couldn't really find a place to land. No one really wanted to take a shot on a kid from California with, not a ton of experience. So I ended up just going to LA. It was my first stop. I played for the LA Junior Kings, 16 AAA, for a month actually. And then I ended up getting a call from Omaha in the USHL. And they offered me to come up and finish the season with them. It was a pretty whirlwind experience. I didn't get drafted in the USHL. I didn't get drafted in the WHL. So it was pretty surprising when I got that call. And, I knew right away that I was leaving. So I called my mom. I let her know. Didn't really give her a chance to convince me otherwise. I took off to Omaha, finished that year. Then I went to Ann Arbor to play for the U.S. development team. Played my junior year of high school out there and was lucky enough to get a full ride offer from Boston College to go into school a year early. So I went into school as a 17-year-old freshman. I was able to get a year of college in under my belt before my draft year, which I think was really beneficial. Ended up getting drafted. Larry was there with me, which I was super lucky that all that worked out, and played 2 more years of school and decided to turn pro.
That sounds about right.
Fantastic. Now, Brenton, can you fill in some of the gaps a little bit there in regards to, like, what was your feeling as a parent watching the progression of Thatcher going from, youth hockey to knocking on the door to playing in the best junior league in the United States, and then move on from there?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Thatch kind of had going for him is he's always been big, or bigger, taller, I should say. And so even when he was younger, he was playing a lot of his games and practices with the 94 age group kids. And here in San Diego, we don't have enough kids to have birth year peer teams. So, our power teams from back then were all 94, 95 split birth year teams. And so I was somewhat accustomed to Thatch playing with older kids or even playing up. I mean, there was that one year where you actually cut him from playing up, and he went to a different rink to do that. But when he left home to go play in the USHL, that's when it kind of gets real, because he's not sleeping in his own room. You're not seeing him every day. There are a lot of things that go into that decision. And, it was kind of interesting because you spend, this youth hockey career thinking about the next level. When is it going to be? Where is it going to be? And that's what you work towards. We had meetings with you, Larry. We had meetings with other coaches. Thatch this is definitely what he wanted. But when that phone call comes, it's like a punch in the gut. You're just like, oh man, this is great. And then it catches you, like, what do you mean my kid's moving? It just doesn't, because there's no other sport that's similar to this, at least not in California. Football, you go to high school, you play football, then you go to college. I mean, it's all similar stuff, but with hockey, it's different. And so, yeah, I mean, when we moved him out to Omaha, I think it was the first time that I was a little bit concerned wasn't the right word, but I was just wondering if he was going to be able to make the jump from U16 to the USHL at age 15 as a goalie. And so, his mother and I took him out there. I think his mom stayed for the first week. And, me personally, I was so nervous, I stayed another week. I had to see just how the practice was going and everything else. And it's just the speed, pace of the game thing. And so, after a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, Thatch was able to adjust to that. But again, same kind of thing when he goes to Boston College is, Thatch finished his 12th grade high school year online over the summer. And, he's the youngest player in Division I college hockey that year. And, it doesn't matter if you're playing on a powerhouse team or middle of the pack team or whatever, the jump is significant. I mean, it's just the pace of play. In college hockey, there can be 25-year-old players. And so now you've got, essentially kids or some kids coming in playing against, grown men. And so, that level of concern was there again, but it's, you put your work in and you get, reps and good coaching, then the adjustment happens a little bit quicker. And, that's what happened with Thatch. But again, it's the same thing, no matter what jump, the pyramid gets smaller and smaller at the top. And so every time you jump a level, essentially you're playing, in theory with the elite players from the level you were just in. And every jump, it gets narrower and narrower. It's the better players. And so, but no, I mean, that was it. I mean, he hit it right on the head as far as the timeline goes and that kind of thing.
Perfect. So Thatcher, real quick, we're going to jump right into the Q&A section. All these players want to hear about your experiences at the different levels. We're going to start off from a question from Kyle Clements.
Is this my Kyle Clements or is this a new Kyle Clements?
I just put through Kyle Clements' name in there because it's actually a question from me. Okay. What is the best and worst thing about being an NHL hockey player?
Yeah. I mean, there's a saying up in the league that there's no bad days in the NHL. So the guys that sit there and complain about different things that are going on day to day, those guys don't seem to stick around very long. But I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to play in the NHL. It's all glamorous when you're watching it on TV, but the day to day, the travel, just the pressure of expectation it's tough, and you got to live up to that pressure. And I mean, it's all part of it. And as you go through your career, you find yourself in certain circumstances where you have to step up, and you're only going to get so many opportunities. And it's the kids that can perform during those opportunities that are going to get looks at the next level. And I mean, like I said, there's not a lot of bad things about playing the NHL. I mean, it's a dream come true, and the lifestyle is really nice. They treat you really well. So yeah, I don't have too many complaints about playing.
Awesome. Well, it's good to hear. At the end of the day, you're going to have positives and negatives about everything you do in life. Doesn't matter what your job is, but to hear it from someone that's playing it, it's all pretty good. It's great to hear. Next question is from Chris Severin. He says, "What should an 11-year-old work on to help build the foundation? And what are your thoughts about juggling off ice?"
Well, what was that, going off ice?
The question's for Thatcher, and it's what should an 11-year-old work on to help build their foundation, okay. and what are your thoughts on juggling off ice?
Oh, juggling. Okay.
I mean, I did a lot of juggling. I think more so as I got a little bit older. And I mean, it's just one of the things that'll help. And there's so many different things. I mean, so many knick-knack things that you can do that really don't take a lot of effort, that are going to develop your natural skill as an athlete overall, not just as a hockey player. But I mean, 11's pretty young. I remember for me, it was just about being on the ice. I love playing hockey, especially as a kid. It was, really easy going, and I just wanted to be out there. And I remember after my 8th grade year, I decided that I wanted to start getting on the ice more and more. Our team in San Diego only practiced twice a week, and I felt like I needed to be on the ice more often. So I dropped out of public school. I ended up enrolling myself into charter school up near the rink so I could be on the ice more, because I wanted to make that jump into junior as quickly as I could. And, for me, that was, I'd go to school in the morning. My dad would drop me off. I'd get on the public bus. I'd go to the bus to the rink. I'd skate with the beer league guys during the 11 o'clock stick time. I'd get back on the bus, go back to school for a few hours, and then I'd get back on the bus and go back to the rink for team practice that night. So for me, it was just being on the ice. And, when you're having fun and you're working, your skills are going to develop themselves, with repetition. So, like I said, just enjoy it, and you just got to put in the work, really.
Perfect.
I'm gonna chirp in on that one. As an 11-year-old, one of the best things you can do is to play other sports. I mean, at that age, you can't focus on just one thing at such a young age. And I mean, Thatch played all the different sports until he was like 12, 13 years old. And, once you get to Bantams, the travel and the commitment, if you're taking this seriously, makes it a lot more difficult to play other sports. But you really should put your gear away during the summer for a little bit. I mean, in hindsight, Thatch probably didn't do that enough. But, don't focus on just one sport. I mean, play lacrosse, play soccer. All of those sports are going to teach you different skill sets, develop other, hand-eye coordination type things that are just going to help cross over to your hockey skill sets. And so, don't limit yourself. Get out and do some other things when you're, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, for sure.
Perfect. The next question is for Brenton, and it's from Zandra Masari. And she says, how do you know, how do you know when it is a good time to step back and let your child kind of make their own decisions in regards to commitment and how much time to put in and their performance level? And also the second part of that question is, and at what point should the parent make the child accountable and for putting in and even given some constructive criticism?
Ooh. Man, that's a tough one. Well, I'll just share the experience we had with you, Larry. I mean, just to give just a quick little background on me as well, is I did help coach a lot of Thatcher's teams, so I have a lot of experience in dealing with not only being a hockey parent, but dealing with hockey parents from a coach's standpoint. And the one thing for all the parents that are on this call right now, you've got to get out of the way. And I don't know any of you, but my best guess is that none of you are out there taking reps on the ice. You're not in the locker room before and after games or in between periods. And, you really should not be driving much of the conversation about your son's development from like a commitment level or a day-to-day, feedback level and that kind of thing. Thatch I think he was a peewee, and he was trying to play up at Bantams, and he wanted to talk to Larry about the feasibility of that happening. And at first, Thatch was like, "Hey, Dad, can you go talk to Larry?" I said, "I'm not doing it." I said, "You're the player. This is you. You need to go meet with the coach and ask him questions about playing time and goalie rotations and development, and is he good enough to play up with the Bantams instead of peewees?" And so Thatch, to his credit, basically wrote out a list of 15 questions or so, and had a meeting with Larry. And I sat in on the meeting, but I didn't say a whole lot. And it truly was a discussion between Larry and Thatch as to what's going on with the level I'm at, would I play enough, that kind of thing. As far as letting a player make their own decisions about commitment and performance, I mean, they should be doing that all the time. If you're having to coerce your player to get in the car and go to the rink to practice every day, you might consider finding a different sport or a different type of hobby to pursue. And one of the things that I made an agreement with Thatch, and I think he was 10, which seems very young, but at the time, Thatch was getting a little bit better for that age, and he wanted to play on some summer tournament teams and some other things that were available to him, but would require extra. And when I say extra, it's the extra practicing, it's the extra commitment, it's the extra money, it's the extra time. I mean, this is not a cheap sport by any stretch of the imagination. And so the agreement that I had with Thatch is I said, hey, if you put in the extra work, you're the one that's, doing the work after practice, whether it was juggling, off-ice stuff, going to extra stick times, just stick handling in the garage, reading about goalie practices, staying current on other things. If you do all those things and show me as your parent that you are committed to this, then I'll make sure you get to the rink and do the extra ice time and get to that extra practice on a Saturday morning when I want to sleep in, or make sure that you have the correct gear and are going to the right goalie clinics and possibly summer tournament teams and that kind of thing. Because I just wasn't in a position financially or even from a time standpoint where I'd be willing to do all those things if I'm having to, tell him 15 times to get his gear packed to get in the car because we're 5 minutes late from practice. I mean, that just wasn't going to cut it. And so really a lot of this, was driven by Thatch. He was the one that was pushing that he wanted to play more and he wanted to get better and he wanted to, learn more about this or skate in this tournament team over the summer because they were going to, play in front of these coaches or whatever it was. And, as far as the accountability and the constructive criticism thing goes, I wasn't the best at this, but, on the flip, on the other hand, I have a level 4 USA hockey certification, so it's not like I know zero about hockey. But the constructive criticism thing is tough, because you do not want to be that parent that's ripping into your kid on the car on the way home about the game when, you think you're being constructive, when really at that particular time you're not. And a lot of that should be relied upon for the coaching staff. There, admittedly, I'm sure there's plenty of times, too many to count, that I'd do that to Thatch. But then a lot of times I would let him drive the conversation and just ask the question, how do you think you played? And I even ask him that to this day. And then it allows him to share and reflect and potentially open up a conversation where we can have a little bit deeper of a conversation of like specific play or a save selection or things like that. But, as he got older, I learned not to, not necessarily dive right into those topics because of the fact, he is getting coaching and there's other things that he and his coach are talking about that I don't want to, step on the coach's toes with that, give mixed messages to my son, who's the player. That's a very, that's when you kind of got to walk a tightrope with, for sure.
Perfect. Now, question for Thatcher. What has been some of the hardest situations that you've had to deal with, that you've had to overcome on your path to the NHL?
Oh, a lot. I mean, it's not easy, progressing in your career. There's tons of obstacles that are always going to be in the way, regardless of what you decide to do in life. It's not just hockey; it's everything. And I think the first big one for me was dropping out of public school, like I mentioned, and deciding to committing myself to putting that extra time into going to school, getting on the bus, doing the extra ice times, and obviously moving away from home was really hard for me. I struggled with that transition a little bit, just as a human, not just a hockey player. Being a young kid, 15 years old, and moving halfway across the country was tough. And then I think probably the biggest one for me was accelerating my senior year of high school and graduating, in 3 months, trying to get that done. So I was able to go to BC on time. I had to take 10 classes or whatever it was in 3 months. And it was every day, Monday through Sunday for 8 hours a day, just sitting at home. All my friends were at the beach, they're outside hanging out like normal kids are doing. And, I was inside trying to learn Spanish by myself. But yeah, it's the transition from level to level is going to be hard regardless. But everyone's path is going to be a little bit different, and everyone's path is going to, propose different obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. But for me, I think those were, some of the toughest ones were even before I turned pro.
Thank you. Yeah, no, every player that makes the long journey to the top, there's lots and lots and lots of adversity you have to overcome. Can you talk a little bit about mental mindset and about maybe some training that you've done to help assist in those areas? And also, for a goaltender, being strong mentally is very, very, very important.
Yeah, it's something I'm still working on big time. There's a lot of times where I find that like the mental part of the game is not even when you're on the ice. Like you said, there's so many obstacles that are going to come your way, and it's up to you to be diligent and be confident in yourself to overcome those things. And there are plenty of times in my career where it just kind of looked like it wasn't going to work out, as a kid especially. And, you have to kind of believe in yourself when there's nothing to believe in. When you're getting cut from teams or, coaches aren't telling you that you're going to be able to play at this level, you have to be able to push through that and, really just for me, it was the love of the game. Like I just wasn't going to give up on it. I knew I wanted to be playing. I knew that I could do it. Maybe it took a little bit of extra work for me, as opposed to, some other kids that maybe had a little bit more physical talent at the time. But then, the on-ice mental part is tough too. And there's a lot of resources to help you out. I'm still working on that. Like I said, my dad, he's still involved trying to, provide resources for me, that are going to give me an extra tool in the toolbox. And there's sometimes where I'm a little bit reluctant to work on the mental part of the game because it is, you don't see it. So it's harder to work on, right? It's easy to work on your T pushes or your shuffles or your butterfly slides, but it's a little bit trickier to work on the mental part of the game, but it's equally, maybe even more important. So that's definitely something I'm working on, especially, playing in the NHL. I'm still new, just finishing up my rookie season. So definitely working on it. And, it's definitely something that you got to get a hold of.
Oh, there I was on mute. Thank you very much. Very nice. Now, real quick, Thatch, we're gonna change it up. We're gonna do a quick fire, one-word answers. Okay, real quick.
Right.
Favorite player?
Right now or growing up?
Favorite player? It doesn't matter.
Jonathan Quick.
Favorite pads?
Grinds.
I knew that. Favorite camp?
Bandits Goalie School is one that I went to.
Favorite tournament or event you've been to?
Ooh, probably World Juniors, or maybe U18. We got a silver medal in the U18 tournament, which was pretty
That's
cool.
Sochi?
Yeah, Sochi.
Okay. Coolest moment?
I was lucky enough to beat Jonathan Quick in a shootout in my first year pro. I had a pretty good game in Vancouver, and it was kind of a pretty big wow moment for me. I mean, I grew up a huge Kings fan. I watched them win the cup. I was a little bit teary-eyed when they won the cup for the first time in 2012. The 8th seed, and Jonathan Quick won the Conn Smythe. So I just always looked up to him, and I was able to share the ice with him, and we ended up winning. And it was just a cool moment. I remember I called my dad right after the game. I was like, dude, what just happened? Like, it was crazy for me. It was kind of like the moment where I was like, all right, like I'm up here, like I can do this. So that was definitely one that I'll remember.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, Brenton, let me get my right sheet here. Mr. Johnson would like to know, how can a parent who might not know much about hockey help their child improve their game? What are some resources, or good parent tips that you can give to help the goaltender, even if they don't know much about it?
Okay. Well, as far as, helping out for someone who doesn't know that much about the sport. And I mean, I did this, even though I'm, a little bit knowledgeable about the sport, but I have an inner circle of people that I rely on for advice. Larry is in my circle. Thatch's agent happens to be in our circle. And there's about 2 or 3 other people that we've come across through our years in the sport that, there's really no ulterior motive for them when they're giving us advice. Like when I talked to Larry about, whatever it may be back in the day, it wasn't, Larry wasn't giving me an answer that I wanted to hear because he was trying to recruit Thatch on his team or needed us to pay team dues for his club. Larry just had Thatch's best interests at heart and could give me, information or answers to my questions. And we don't always agree. I mean, that's the one thing is, it's definitely not something where Larry's just a yes man or, just tell me what I want to hear. But I just felt that it was extraordinarily valuable to be able to pick people's brains that had more knowledge than I did about it. That just came from a pure place that, could help give me more information so I could make the best decision that I possibly could. And so I recommend that, as your son, daughter gets older in this, and, you start to progress and you're starting to think about, next opportunities, find those people in your circle. And, it could be a coach with your current club. It could be, somebody's a coach at a different club. You just never know. But, reach out and talk to people about their experiences, ask questions, just like you're doing here. Find resources to listen to people that have been there, done that, so you can hear the good, bad, and the ugly about it. And then as far as like goalie stuff goes, we used to search everywhere on the internet, magazine. There used to be Goalies World magazine. There's goalie websites, YouTube. USA Hockey's got resources. There's so many different, and there's a lot more now. This was 10, 12, 14 years ago that we were doing this with Thatch now. But there's information out there on the internet. Like Bandits Goalie School, for example, we relied on Stan for quite a bit. And, Stan could give feedback, on drills, recommendations for other places of resources. If you're living in California, it's going to be more challenging, hands down. That's just the reality of this sport. And so you are going to have to search out for other resources. One of the things that we used to do with Thatch, and, I'm not suggesting that everybody can do this, but when Thatch was traveling with his team when he was younger, I would always go online and find like the top goalie coach in the city we were going to, whether it was Vancouver or Detroit or, Boston or wherever. And then I would try to get a private lesson with that coach while we were there. And so we might fly out a day early, we might stay a day later. But I just, I wanted Thatch to experience a different voice, possibly pick up some new skills, but then also hear the feedback from that goalie coach, because it is, especially in California, like, in San Diego, when you're a good player in San Diego, you were really, you were looking at LA, Vegas, and Phoenix. And, you're kind of comparing yourself against kids in that geographic area. But guess what? The hockey world is worldwide. And so, you might be the top dog in San Diego when you're 14 years old, but you've only compared yourself to Phoenix, Vegas, and LA. And so, if you can get some feedback from a coach in Richmond or Seattle or Chicago or wherever it may be, it just gives another set of eyes and maybe some other things to work on and that kind of thing. And so it's the information's definitely out there, a lot more so now. It's just a matter of finding it. And a lot of times coaches at clubs can help out with that, or just hop on the internet and, Google, Bing, Yahoo search, whatever you use.
Perfect. Well, there's two things I'd like to add there. One, we've got a handful of new viewers today that weren't on the past two goalie sessions we did. We actually did do a session that was online resources and focus on player development. And so if you shoot me an email, coachcahn@yahoo.com, I will send you to the link to where you can watch that. The first one we didn't get to record, but the second one was recorded.
And hit up Larry, because he's got all my old blood drill books and all my old magazines and everything. I passed those along to you a few years ago.
Absolutely, and that's actually leading up to my next question. The next question is from Dave Scooby, and he says, Coach Larry has mentioned a book that you put together for Thatcher. Can you explain?
Well, so back then there was a magazine called Goalies World, and it was an incredible magazine. And, it had all your typical articles in it, but then it had a bunch of drills in it. And then I can't remember that other place where I got all those drills, but I essentially compiled all the drills into one big notebook. And, they were broken down by skill set and also by, what you were trying to, like whether it was rimming the puck or whatever, and then the drills were beginner, advanced, medium. And we just put it together to have it all in one spot. But I think from that, I mean, it kind of morphed into Thatcher's goalie notebook, and I think that's probably a lot more important than the one that, I had put together kind of thing.
Absolutely. Okay. Next question for Thatcher. Justin is asking, with all the skill and talent at the college and pro levels, how did you keep up to the shot speed? And can you speak about how you track or anticipate pucks at that speed? Plus, third part of the question is, what do you feel is the biggest jump as you went up the path?
Yeah. So, shot speed is a real thing. I mean, I feel like there's still some days this past season where I'd go to practice and I'd just be like, holy cow, like these guys are ripping it today. It's just something that you kind of learn to adapt to. And, the more shots you face, the better. And it's just like any other skill. It's with repetition, you're going to find, quirky and balances that you can, kind of customize to your own skill set. And, as far as the transition goes, I think the biggest one for me was college to pro. And by pro, I mean the AHL, because, there's going from college to the AHL and then the AHL to the NHL. But I remember, I think I lost my first 5 pro games or something. Was it 5, Dad?
4, yeah, somewhere around there, like 4 or 5.
It was something that was like, whoa, my gosh, what's going on? And I remember that transition was like, it was real. And, I didn't really expect that. You don't hear much about the AHL when you're coming up as a kid. Everything's all, about glorifying the NHL, but the AHL is a big jump. So I think that was the biggest one for me. But, I'm still kind of learning how to deal with the shot speed. For me, it's just trying to anticipate plays. And I think as a kid, I was always, when I was watching on TV, I wasn't just, watching blindly. I was always, seeing what guys were doing, seeing what plays could be made before they were made. Just watching endless hours of clips, whether it was, just hockey on TV or YouTube videos. You kind of just familiarize yourself with the game. And, I think for me, it's just anticipation, reading the play. If you can put yourself in a good position before the shot's even taken, then, you're going to set yourself up to be a little bit more successful in the moment.
Just on that topic really quick, there was an interview Thatch did one time that was asking about the speed of the game and the adjustment. And he full on admitted, he said, yeah, when I was in college, the puck would come in over the blue line and I'd get set up and I could kind of, analyze the play and get over to my spot and get ready. He says, in the American League, if I'm not ready when the puck crosses the red line, I'm behind. Just because you got to know. It's coming. And, the American League, that's pro hockey. And there's guys in that league that can rip the puck better than some NHL guys. And the reason they're not in the NHL is some other reason. And there was a guy that Thatch played with in Utica, and I think he's still there, this Reed Boucher guy. That guy can rip pucks. And
the best shot I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I've played against a lot of good players. I've played against McDavid. I've played against, Toronto, Austin Matthews. I've played against all those guys. This guy, he easily has the best shot that I've seen by my ear every single time.
And Reed's not in the NHL because he's half a step slow, and he doesn't like playing defense as much as some other guys. But from a shooting the puck standpoint, guy's lethal.
That's okay. Okay, Thatcher. Another question from Kaz. How often do you train on and off the ice when you were a youth hockey player? And what did you do off ice that can help develop your game?
From my memory, obviously I was a kid, but I was doing something every day. I thought, I was trying to find the ice as much as I can. God bless my parents. The only ice time available some days was 5 to 7:30 in the morning. So we would be up, getting to the rink, ungodly hours. But it was just, and my dad mentioned it a little bit, but just playing other sports helps a ton. I played basketball, soccer, baseball, lacrosse, all on teams playing. It wasn't just hockey. So I think that really develops your athleticism as a whole. And I find that, in hockey, there are certain times as a goaltender especially where there's no technique at all. There are just certain plays where the puck is coming in, it hits a skate and goes to the other side of the net, and you got to rely on something in your body, some sort of reaction to, try and find a solution in that moment. And, if you're just playing hockey and you're just doing T-pushes and butterflies, there are times in the sport of hockey where that's just not going to cut it. And, I think when you play other sports, it develops those instincts and those physical abilities as well.
Awesome. And
a lot of the fast twitch stuff, like fast feet, ladders. There's this dog chew toy that you can get it's like
reaction ball.
Ball. That there was another one that Jay Bear used to do with the use. Just have stand in front of somebody and he just flicks a card at you, and you have to grab the playing card midair, and it's just a reaction time throw. So it's not even using the ball necessarily, but it's just those kind of things that augment and kind of help the skill sets that you're going to need on the ice. Whether it's a reaction time thing, I mean, trying to catch a card midair, that's tracking puck. That's tracking. You got to find that and react to it before it hits the ground. So there's a lot of things that you can do that are going to cross over like that.
So I'm going to add one part to the question for Thatcher. When did you start lifting? When did you start lifting, and do you feel it was early enough? And where do you think you would be if you didn't lift and have, and I say lift as in your off ice training, hockey specific?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I didn't lift, I would be about paper thin. I swear. I'm a pretty lanky guy. Guys on the team sometimes give me a hard time for it, but just a slender 6'4", 200 pounds. So if I'm not lifting, I'm probably floating away with the wind. But I remember starting off ice programs pretty young. Like, I mean, Dad, you can kind of attest to it. I remember it being around 10 or 11 years old. I mean, it wasn't like weightlifting, but like my dad said, it was just athleticism, speed ladders, tennis ball work, that kind of thing. And as you develop or physically, as you get older, you're going to kind of progress that. And, the first time I really lifted weights was probably when I got to Omaha. Maybe here and there I was doing a little bit of stuff, maybe the summer before that in San Diego, but it wasn't anything heavy. It was, more so just trying to get into that rhythm and kind of find my way through that. But
that was, I mean, you started working out with Jay Bear, like with weights, like right around the time you turned 14-ish, roughly. And, one of the things that, goalies specifically when it comes to weights, because, Thatch and I used to have these discussions because, I know because I went through it myself, you're 14, 15 years old as a young boy, and you want to start lifting weights to get muscles for whatever reason, whether it's sports girls, you looking good, whatever it is. You can't start pumping heavy weights when you're too young. I mean, especially for the kids that have not gone through puberty yet. And then the other thing too is that, goalies can't be these huge physical specimens that just have these, bulging muscles, because they need to be quick. They need to be reactive. They need to be fast with their reactions. And, one of the things that we used to pull up the heights and weights of goalies, to make my point to Thatch. And if you pull up Ryan Miller, and Thatch has played with Ryan and has shared the net with him in training camp before, like 6'1", 160 pounds. I mean, this guy literally needs to dance around in the shower to get wet. And he probably is going in the Hall of Fame, or should. I mean, he's a very decorated American goalie. And so really you're working out when it's time to add weights to your regimen. You got to make sure it's an appropriate time for where you are physically, but then you also can't overdo it and, go in and say, hey, I'm going to bench 300 pounds, 10 reps a set, and just be this hulking bodybuilder kind of guy, because it's just not going to turn out well when you get on the ice and try to get your pads on.
When you do start lifting weights, just make sure you do your legs. That's the goalie's moneymaker right there.
Can't skip leg day.
100%. Okay, now, Brenton, real quick, hit your memory bank. Along the way, along the journey, what was your favorite moment? And I'm going to put you on a time limit here because we talk a lot. So
what you're saying is I talk a lot.
Yes. So give me a 2-3 minute spiel of your favorite moment along the journey.
Just one moment?
One moment. Or experience or whatnot. I mean, yeah.
Oh, man. Along the way, one favorite moment.
Okay, while you think of that, I'm going to go to Thatcher then.
Yeah, go to Thatcher. I don't know if I have this one.
Okay, give me one. Thatcher, Toby would like to know how you mentally handle the pressure of overtime.
What? That's the best part. You get to OT and it's like, all right, like now it's short, it's easy. I mean, the first 60 minutes of the game are the toughest, I think. You know, for me, I put a lot of pressure on myself, you know, especially with the opportunity that I'm kind of getting right now, you know, getting a look in the NHL. So I tend to think about the game a lot, even when I'm not at the rink. And, you know, the build up to the game mentally can be a little bit of a burden for me sometimes. So, you know, for me, trying to just release, you know, all the negative thoughts that can come into your head before a game and just kind of go through your day and show up to the rink a little bit easy going, trying to enjoy it. And then if you're getting into overtime, it's just relaxed, and I love them. I love overtimes. I love shootouts too. You know, that's kind of like your time to shine. There's not a lot of pressure, I don't find. Yeah, so I guess for me, it's more the first 60 minutes of the game.
So to recap, the reason why you choose to be a goalie is so you can be the man and win the game, and that happens in OT.
I think maybe my first game as a goalie went to a shootout, and I was like, wow, this is nice. I'm going to stick with this.
Awesome. Okay. Brenton, favorite moment? The clock is ticking.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little outside the box with this just because they're hard to rank. So it was Thatcher's freshman year at Boston College, and I had just finished reading a book about goalie mindset, and I'd have to look back as to exactly what book it was because I can't remember the name of it right now. But there's a chapter in it, very short chapter. It's like a page and a half. It's chapter 12 in that book, and all it talks about is one shot at a time. And you know, as a goalie during the game, that's all you need to be thinking about is stopping the next shot, because you're not winning the game with that save. You know, nothing else should matter except saving the next shot. And so I'd given Thatch a copy of the book before the NCAA regionals. And so it was the first series of games in the NCAA tournament.
Like the Sweet 16.
Yes, and I told him, I said, you don't have time to read this whole book. Just read chapter 12 for me before the weekend. I said, it's literally a page and a half long, and, you know, sent him the book. And so they ended up winning the regional. And I'll never forget that, coming out of the locker room afterwards with his, you know, regional champion hat on that I still have, and just the look on his face that he gave me. And then we were, you know, hugging and celebrating. And so he gets back on the bus to go back to Boston College. And I'm in my car in the parking lot, just kind of absorbing it all. And Thatch sent me a text. And he just said, hey, man, chapter 12 saved the weekend. And for me, it was just, you know, a pretty amazing moment that, you know, he could take that little bit of information and turn around and apply it in such a high pressure weekend. And then just the fact that they won, you know, they were headed to the Frozen Four. That was pretty cool moment.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Thatcher. Where'd I go? Sebastian and Clementine they're curious. Actually, you already addressed it. How about this? Have you always wanted to be a goalie? Their question was, have you always wanted to be a goalie?
I think as a kid, I obviously started playing hockey, not playing goalie. I was playing out quite a bit. I think I was maybe around 10 years old when I switched to full time. But I mean, I love the sport in general. Like I love playing out still. Like if there's a day where the ice is open, I'll just throw on sweats and go out with a player stick and just kind of skate around and shoot around. And, I think for me, it was, I love the game so much that I just kind of had to find my niche in it. And I ended up just being a little bit better at goalie than I was a defenseman. So I stuck with it. But I mean, I obviously love playing goalie, but I think it's just a more broader sense of loving the whole game.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Brenton, Steve Durkee. Sorry. As a parent of a child who made their dreams come true, what do you feel were one or two of the most important aspects along the way that if Thatcher didn't do X, Y, or Z, he potentially wouldn't be where he's at?
I think, well, yeah, there are two things, and my personal opinion is that if he didn't do either one of these, there's no chance in hell he'd make it. The first one is just the work ethic. I mean, you have got to put in the work. I mean, this is not show up to practice for 2 hours a week, play a game on Saturday, and you're going to light the world on fire. I mean, it's a commitment, and it takes a village. I mean, I'm not saying the kids can't do it, without family support, coach support, all that kind of thing, but it's exponentially difficult without it. And then the other thing that goes along with that is just, staying humble and stop the excuses. There's team politics, there's this, there's that. This is the reason I didn't make it. It's very easy to come up with a reason why you weren't selected for that team. Or you can say, well, screw that. I'm just going to work harder and get better. And we used to always, I still tell Thatcher this day, I said, you got to play so well, you got to make it so hard that the coach has no reason but to put you in because you're the best kid on the ice. And so I know that, especially with selection camps and some of these tournament teams and during tryouts, sometimes parents don't understand selections or players even. And, if you're committed to this, and this is what you eat, breathe, sleep, etc., then put that away and just work hard and be that guy and show that coach that he made the wrong decision because you just went and elevated your game to the next level and he missed out, kind of thing.
Okay, very good. So Thatcher, Rob has a question. His question is, what is the hardest part of training, or like the one part that you just hate the most, and how do you mentally power through it?
For me personally, and this might not sound very good, but I'm not a huge fan of working out off the ice. For me, it's just I love being on the ice, and it's so easy for me to work hard when I'm out there in my gear and facing shots. It's sometimes hard for me in the summer to wake up when it's nice out and go in the weight room and hop on the bike and try and kill yourself that day. And for me, I've had a few circumstances where maybe I wasn't in the best shape, and I've seen how that's affected my game. I've seen how it's affected maybe the organization kind of harping on me just to make sure that I'm doing all the right things. And as a young pro, I was just able to kind of set myself back and realize what it really takes to play in the NHL, because up until, I turned pro, I didn't really have to work out, a ton during the summer in order to come into school and be ready to play games. It was more so for me training on the ice, but it took me a little bit of an adjustment playing pro to realize the work that needs to be put in off the ice in order to be, in your top physical shape to play in the NHL. So for me, I want to play in the NHL, and I know I have to do that. So it's a no-brainer for me.
Awesome. Okay. Thatcher, this question is from me.
Oh, let's hear it.
If you had a chance to do it all over again, is there anything that you would change?
No.
Nice. I like that.
It was hard. I mean, it's still going to be hard. I'm just getting to the tip of the iceberg now, I think. But, it's really hard. And when you think you're doing enough, you got to go an extra 15%. And when you think you got nothing left training-wise, just do, an extra set on the ice. I think, the kid, there's obviously so many talented players out there, but, it's the guys that maybe aren't as talented that are staying out doing extra stuff that they're going to stick around and make it through. So it was hard to get to where I'm at, but I loved it.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take this moment to talk a little bit about why you guys are here. And so, for Brenton, I invited Brenton onto this call because I felt that over the years, he was one of the parents that helped support their child along the way, gave them the opportunity without being over the top, being that crazy hockey parent, which everyone's heard that term. It's important. It's not just important. It is mandatory for a player to have parental support. Now, that support doesn't have to know the game, but that support has to be there for them, has to help them along, has to push. Brenton was that dad that, and you heard a few of the things throughout this call, that would find the local goalie guru if we went to a tournament and help Thatcher get an extra private lesson. Now, Thatcher was the driving force behind all that. He wanted to get on the ice. He wanted to train. He wanted to come in my office, and that one meeting was not the only meeting that Thatcher and I had. Every season he played for me, we had that meeting at the beginning of the season with his list of goals for the year and his questions of, I need to do this, and this, and what's my expectation here, and here, and what can I do to achieve X, Y, and Z. And because of that, he's creating his own roadmap, and that roadmap helped him get to where he's at. And so I'd like to thank both these guys for coming on, sharing their wisdom, obviously the path of the player, but also the path of the parent to help you goalie parents help you kind of understand, yes, you guys need to be there for your player, but you can't be the only driving force. It has to be led by them, but there are lots of different things that you can do to support. That being said, I have a final question for both. Brenton, if you had one thing to tell the parents on the call, one thing that you could tell them to help assist their child along the way, what would that be?
I think it just gets back to being that support person. I referenced that agreement that I made with Thatcher when he was younger. And I don't know if it has to be something of that nature, but it's got to be a partnership. I wasn't doing all this research and writing checks and driving and flying around and doing all those crazy things if Thatch wasn't fully vested and proved to me that this truly was his life's passion. I mean, it's a sacrifice no matter what. And, But on the flip side, one of the biggest things, I just wanted to touch on this because I think it's very useful. And I've talked with Owen Millward's dad, Keith, quite a bit because they're, Owen's kind of in that, exciting time where, a lot more opportunities have been opening up for him. And, one of the biggest things is patience. Just because you're on a team and 8 other kids have offers to go play in juniors or, on the next super summer team, or, you start to get in a situation where guys are getting offers to colleges or whatever. That doesn't mean that your player is ready or needs one at that time. And, you really have to focus on your own development. Coaches, scouts, they're all looking for different things. And just because your player is not scoring 50 goals a season doesn't mean that he doesn't have a spot on the team on the next level. Because, there's third line, fourth line guys, that kind of thing. And you just need to focus on your own development and not get wrapped up into the guy next to you. I mean, there's guys that Thatch played with, back when he was 12, 13 years old that are just now graduating college. And, Thatch is, 4-year pro now, I think? Yeah, 4 years pro. So you just can't compare, what other guys are doing as it relates. And, that keeping up with the Jones thing has just got to go when it comes to, navigating your kid's hockey career.
Now, real quick, you coached Plotkin, didn't you?
Yes.
Can you explain his path in quick? And then the only reason why I asked this is Plotkin was a player that I didn't know well, but I saw him play 16 AAA and he was not good.
Okay, I coached Evan Plotnik at U18.
Plotnik, that's what it was.
Yeah, I coached him at U18, and he and his father had a little bit of an overinflated idea of his skill set. And I mean, that year, quite frankly, neither one of our goalies were very good. And, we told him we weren't going to take him the following year just because, we just weren't thrilled with his development. His attitude wasn't the greatest. I mean, just one of those players where, I admit it now, and, this would not be news to Evan or his father, we just didn't jive very well. And so Evan left our program. He went to go play juniors up in Saskatchewan, I think it was. Ended up leading his junior A team Saskatchewan to the league championship, and he got a full ride to AIC. And the minute that he announced it, I was the first guy on Twitter to congratulate him, just because of the fact. I mean, I think he had an 830 save percentage as a U18 player. And, in my book, in my experience, those guys typically don't make it to the next level, let alone getting a full ride Division I scholarship. Yeah, and he was able to persevere and stick with it. Whew,
yeah, man. That was the reason why I mentioned that. I wanted Brenton to cover that. Is there are different paths along the way, lots of them, and just because you're struggling at a level, it might not be the right fit. You might need to drop a level to succeed, and then you might need a new situation to get to that success path. There is a path for everyone to get to where they want to get to. Now, everyone's limited. Some are limited by athletic ability or size or et cetera, et cetera. Some things are out of your control. But if you have the grind and the hard work and all that good stuff, you can accomplish your goals, period. You can make it happen. There is a route out there for you.
I mean, the reality is, really quick, I mean, for the most part, Thatch was a backup goalie until he hit U16 major. I mean, he played behind Reed Kinsey here locally for most of the times he was with the Gulls. And so he would, with the junior Gulls, he was never really the go-to guy, clear-cut number one. But it's that work ethic. It's sticking to developing you and working on your game. And then when that opportunity comes, you put yourself in a position to take it and run with it.
Absolutely. Now, Thatcher, final question for you. If you had one message to tell these young players on the call, that are chasing their dreams? If you had one message, what would that message be?
I mean, I think for me, I think looking back, like, you have to almost speak, what you want to be your reality. You have to know what you want before, you want it, if that makes sense. Like, my mom actually sent me a picture of a goalie notebook that I had when I was 13 years old or something, maybe 14. And I wrote down what year I wanted to accomplish what. And it was essentially just a list of everything I needed to do in order to get to the NHL. And I looked back on it, maybe a year or two ago, and I had completely forgotten about it, but I was just in shock because it literally was go to the USHL, go play at Boston College, be the starter, and then eventually turn pro. And I wrote that down when I was 13 years old. And I woke up every morning, dedicating myself to what I had written down. And it was like a step-by-step exact, path that I had wanted to take. So I think you need to really look in the mirror and ask yourself if you want to do this, because like I said, it's really hard, but at the end of the day, it's really easy. You just have to wake up every single day and you got to do the work. You got to do the extra work. And if you really want it, then you can do it. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter what your background is. If you're working, you're going to get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Brenton, thank you for coming on. Thatcher, I appreciate it, guys. You guys rock. Thanks all for jumping on the call. You can unmute yourself and say thanks as well. But we will call it a day, and we'll probably do another goalie session here with another guest here in a week or so.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Larry,
Thank you.
Patrick,
Go Canucks.
Here, guys.
you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.